Zhang Chao traveled through 4 years of Wude and came to the outskirts of Chang'an to become the son of the old soldiers, but he only wanted to be a leisurely and good landlord of the Tang Dynasty. Reader Group 656118488, Works awarded the 2016 Star Creation Award for Historical Excellence. Keywords of the novel: Tang Dynasty Good Landlord. No pop-ups. Download the complete collection of Tang Dynasty Good Landlord TXT, and read the latest chapters of Tang Dynasty Good Landlord. Chapter 1. 4 Years of Wude. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. 4 years of Wude. The matter is so unbelievable, yet so true. With a blink of an eye, the old hen turned into a duck. But Zhang Chao believes that this is not some kind of magic, because the previous moment he was still in a bustling metropolis, and now he is facing the wilderness and suburbs, especially since he was just in a scorching summer. Now it is icy and snowy here. It's so cold today. Zhang Chao hooked his waist and shrunk his neck, tightly holding his arms with both hands, trying to preserve the rapidly losing body temperature as much as possible. However, relying solely on the thin short sleeves on his body clearly had no insulation effect. In just a short moment, Zhang Chao's teeth had already engaged in a battle. Zhang Chao is a very ordinary young person, just like his name. It is said that there are over 300,000 people named Zhang Wei in China, and there are also many named Zhang Chao. Zhang Chao's figure is neither tall nor short, which is average. He has neat short hair and is not nearsighted. He wears regular short sleeves with jeans and a pair of casual shoes, making him an ordinary person. This kind of Zhang Chao, walking in the city and mixing in the crowd, would not have anyone take a second glance. But now, the group of people across from Zhang Chao seemed to see a giant panda walking on the street. Indeed, Zhang Chao, who was originally extremely ordinary, was somewhat out of place with the people in front of him. Across from Zhang Chao, there was a group of people standing, to be precise, 10 people. These people also have black hair and yellow skin, and at first glance, it is obvious that they are also Chinese. But their hairstyles and clothing are a bit strange. These people look like they are all in their 30s or 40s, but they are all dressed in strange clothes. They all have long hair, tied up like Taoist monks. Unfortunately, they were not wearing Taoist robes, but some were wearing armor and some were wearing long robes, all holding swords. Zhang Chao was a bit familiar with the armor on the person wearing armor. Although it seemed simple, the 2 large round protectors on his chest were very dazzling, and he thought it should be Mingguan armor. The person wearing this armor is one-eyed, with some holding bows and some holding knives. The straight blade seems to be a horizontal sword. From the other person's guarded and scrutinizing expression, Zhang Chao felt that he had understood everything. May I ask, what year is it now? Looking at this group of uncles who clearly didn't seem to be playing cosplay, coupled with the previous anomalies, Zhang Chao felt that he had traveled through time. Zhang Chao is an ordinary 21st century Chinese, living in Shaanxi and studying in Shanghai. His family is extremely ordinary and ordinary. Zhang Chao, who is 21 years old this year, is a recent college graduate who lost his job right after graduation. Having studied at an extremely ordinary university in Shanghai for 4 years and getting used to it, it is not easy to find a job in this metropolis that can support oneself and live in Shanghai. Fortunately, he started serializing novels online since his sophomore year. At first, it was just a hobby, but later he was able to earn some royalties. Although the novels were not very popular, they were still better than what he earned through internships. Therefore, in his senior year, he didn't even seriously look for an internship unit. In the blink of an eye, his senior year was over, he obtained his graduation certificate, walked out of the campus, and immediately became a free agent. I can't believe that when I usually write travel novels, I end up traveling by myself. It felt like he had a dream, but when he pinched his thigh just now, it hurt a lot. The top priority now is to figure out what era this is. It seems to be ancient China and a good start. Uncle, may I ask which year it is now? Zhang Chao was already shivering with cold. He couldn't help but imagine how to kill all the beautiful women in all directions after crossing the country. What he wanted most now was a cotton jacket. Fortunately, although the 10 men across from each other were wielding swords, they were clearly not robbers. It seems that the other side can hear clearly now. This year marks the 4th year of Wude. In the 4th year of Wude, Zhang Chao immediately thought of the corresponding dynasty in his mind. Isn't this the beginning of the founding of the Tang Dynasty? Tang, he actually came to Tang, and then he looked at these few men. Mingguang armor, horizontal knife, and long bow. Yes, Mingguang armor is not one of the Tang 13 armors, as I know it myself. This little brother, looking at your short hair, is it a monk? Asked a black man holding a bow. A yellow-faced man next to him, holding a Tang sword, immediately said, it's needless to say. At first glance, it looks like a young monk who has just come down the mountain. It seems that he has been practicing with his master in the deep mountains. Since the end of the Sui dynasty, there has been a series of military disasters, and indeed many people have avoided entering the deep mountains to practice. Little master, why did you come down the mountain alone, your master? Zhang Chao didn't expect that these people had come up with an identity for him. However, upon reflection, this identity is indeed good. As a young monk who followed his master in seclusion and practice in the deep mountains, he no longer has an unknown origin. At that moment, he immediately descended the donkey and said that he had followed his master to practice in the mountains since childhood. Not long ago, his master passed away, and after burying him, he was ordered to go down the mountain by his master's dying wish. In fact, Zhang Chao's words were also full of flaws. For example, when he went down the mountain, why was he wearing a short-sleeved shirt on a snowy day, and the clothes on his body were completely different from the attire of this era, and the bag was also very unique. But those few men seem to have also ignored these things. It was evident that although these men were lifting bows and wielding swords one by one, they seemed to have great respect for Buddhist disciples. Before Zhang Chao could speak, the one-eyed old man in Mingguang armor pulled out a robe from his backpack. I don't know what kind of animal skin it is made of, and the craftsmanship is very rough, even with a strange smell, it's dirty. However, at this moment, Zhang Chao didn't mind feeling disgusted and immediately took the cloak and wrapped it around his body. Fortunately, although the skin was dirty, it was big enough. Zhang Chao wrapped himself tightly, and his whole body immediately warmed up a lot. Fortunately, I met these uncles. Otherwise, as soon as I crossed over, would have had to take my dog with me, he thought to himself. The attire of the 10 uncles was very peculiar, and the following conversation confirmed his speculation. These uncles are all soldiers of the government, soldiers of the Tang Dynasty who combined agriculture and agriculture. They worked as soldiers during agricultural and wartime, and the court gave them land to exempt them from rental taxes. They also needed to bring their own armor, accept rotation tasks, or be called to the battlefield during wartime. And these 10 uncles are a group. This group is not a criminal gang, but a formation in the Tang Dynasty army, consisting of 10 people. The one-eyed old man who gave him skin is the leader of this group of people. They are not currently at war, but have just finished the war. The army has withdrawn, the general is still in court, and the government soldiers have returned to their homes. This group of soldiers rushed home, and the battle had already ended. It was not their turn to be on duty, so they returned home together. And the battle they just fought was the most important one for the founding of the Tang Dynasty to unify the world. It was the Central Plains War, commanded by His Royal Highness Qin, the second son of the Tang Emperor, to defeat Dou Jiande in Hebei and Wang Shichong in Hunan. The Battle of the Tang Dynasty completely laid the foundation for their victory in unifying the world. Although there are still many warlords in areas such as Jiangnan and Hebei, they are no longer enough to be feared. These victorious soldiers are all from Guangzhou. At this time, the army of the Tang Dynasty was basically located in Guangzhou, with 12 roads set up in Guangzhou, each road having its own army. The army was subordinate to the Biao Cavalry Mansion and the Che Cavalry Mansion. Is little master going to any temple to register when he goes down the mountain? The old man asked. Zhang Chao quickly shook his head. He didn't want to travel to the Tang Dynasty and become a monk in a temple. My master said that I had no connection with Buddhism and asked me to return to secular life after going down the mountain. So where are you going after you've returned to secular life? Where are we going? Where did Zhang Chao know? He doesn't even know where he is now. He still has over 1,000 yuan in cash in his wallet, as well as several cards that add up to over 50,000 yuan. These are the royalties he has saved for writing novels over the past few years, but they cannot be used in the Tang Dynasty. In addition, he also has a watch, phone, tablet and laptop, but these are useless in the Tang Dynasty. There are still some snacks in the bag, which is not enough for him to eat for 2 days. I have nowhere to go, Zhang Chao said truthfully. I can't go back either. Zhang Chao's parents' faces flashed through his mind, maybe he won't see them again in the future. Why don't you follow me home first, said the one-eyed old man. At this moment, the black-faced man with a bow stood aside and said, Uncle Zhang, I think you might as well take him as your son. You are still single anyway. This young wizard has just returned to secular life, but he is homeless and has nowhere to go. You two can live together. If you take him in, he will be able to take care of you in the future. The yellow-faced Tang Dao man nodded repeatedly, yes, yes. The other soldiers from the Guangzhou prefecture were also very enthusiastic, and they all thought that the proposal of the black-faced man was a good solution. Originally, the one-eyed old man was an old soldier, not only a soldier of the Tang Dynasty, but also a soldier of the Sui Dynasty. At that time, they also marched 3 times through Liaodong. Later, they followed Yang Guang to Yangzhou, and after Yu Wenhua and his regicide, these western armies returned north together. Later, Yuan Huaji was defeated by Li Mi from Wagong, and the old leader was captured, so he joined the Wagong army again. Later, Li Mi was defeated by Wang Shichong, and he became a subordinate of Wang Shichong again. Later, he followed several Wagong generals to leave Wang Shichong and join Li Tang, becoming a soldier of the Tang Dynasty. The old leader fought for half of his life and fought for half of his life. He also married a wife and had children, but during the chaotic war at the end of the Sui Dynasty, his family was destroyed. After joining Li Tang, he divided the land and had another home, but he was alone. I have also grown old and no longer have the heart to remarry. Upon hearing his companions ask him to take Zhang Chao as his son, Zhang Taigun was indeed tempted. Although Zhang Chao was ordinary in later generations, he appeared tall and sturdy in this era, with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and even teeth, especially his movements were very appropriate. Child, are you willing? What's there to hesitate about? Even if you go down the mountain without any relatives, it's just right to recognize Uncle Zhang as your father. That's right, kid. Uncle Zhang won't lose you. When we go home with Uncle Zhang, we'll tell you about his wife. When we send Uncle Zhang away in the future, all the family wealth he has saved up will be yours. Child, are you willing? Father Zhang asked again with a hopeful expression on his face. New book upload, please click for recommended tickets. The old author passed on a new book and was also very nervous. This is Muzi's 6th book and also the 4th book written during the Sui and Tang dynasties. Previously, there were also the Sui and Tang trilogy, The End of Sui, Returning to the Great Sui, and Late Tang. Now, this book is written in the early Tang dynasty, and I hope everyone can support it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Chang'an Bahang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Chang'an Bahang. Zhang Chao walked out of the house and curiously surveyed Zhang Jiagu on a winter morning. He and Zhang's father returned to Zhang Jiagu last night, so except for remembering that they had been climbing the slope all along, there was little impression left of them. Yesterday, he walked dozens of miles and was cold and hungry, so after eating some dry food at home, he fell asleep drowsily. When Zhang Chao woke up in the morning, he realized that he didn't live in a house last night, but in a cave. The cellar cave is a soil cellar cave, with only one room and a small courtyard outside, which is very rudimentary. Mr. Zhang had already woken up early in the morning, chopping firewood outside. At the head of Zhang Chao's bed was a set of cloth clothes, a linen jacket with patches on it, but it looked very clean, probably Zhang's own clothes. Zhang Chao looks quite suitable after changing it on, fortunately it's a short shirt instead of a long robe. However, the clothes were too thin, so Zhang Chao also wore his short-sleeved jeans inside, and finally wrapped his head with a piece of cloth, which finally improved a lot. After leaving the house, he originally wanted to help chop wood, but his father said that his delicate and tender hands didn't have a cocoon, so he definitely couldn't do this job. Zhang Chao stood there and helped build firewood that could be chopped, so he started wandering around the village. He already knew that this village was called Zhangjiagu, but most of the people living here did not have the surname Zhang. Anyway, after the chaos, the people stabilized again. The name of the village is also related to the terrain of the village. Zhangjiagu is very close to Chang'an, the capital of the Tang Dynasty, and is only 30 miles away. The area where Zhangjiagu is located is also very famous, called Bashang, and not far from it is the Ba River. Isn't this the white deer plain of later generations? After circling around the small village and taking into account the information his father had told him, Zhang Chao already knew the location of Zhangjiagu. The plateau southeast of Chang'an is the White Deer Plain. Specifically, it should be the ditch between Dezayuan and Paoli Yuan in later generations. Looking south from the village, the valley seems to be the Whale Valley of later generations. The black-faced man who came back together yesterday came carrying a bucket of water and smiled at Zhang Chao. Zhang Chao came back with him yesterday and already knew that this black-faced man is very skilled at using bows and is also a good hunter. Also from this village, but not surnamed Zhang, but surnamed Ku, named Ku Wu. According to Mr. Zhang, the ancestors of Ku Wuzu were Chang people from Longyu and later moved here. Originally, their surnames were Ku Ba, but later changed to Ku. However, Zhang Chao noticed that besides being a bit rough in appearance, Ku Wu's speech and behavior were not much different from those of ordinary Han people. "Uncle Ku, what's the name of that river?" Zhang Chao smiled and asked him. "What's the name of the river?" "It's just a ditch, a bathing ditch." In Ku Wu's words, during summer, it's hot and everyone goes to that ditch to take a shower together in the evening. Over time, this ditch became known as the bathing ditch. The bathing gully is actually a small river that flows through the later generations of Lantian, Chang'an, and Baqiao. Bahang is composed of two adjacent terraces, and Zhangjiagu is the boundary between these two terraces. The whole Bahang area is adjacent to Bahui in the east, Ishui in the west, and Qinling in the Nanling Mountains. The whole area belongs to Ningmin County of Jingzhou Mansion in the Tang Dynasty. To the east, adjacent to the Jiaoba River, lies Yushan County, while to the south, the area beneath the Qinling Mountains is Lantian County. In fact, in later generations, these three counties were mostly within the jurisdiction of Lantian County. Before the Tang Dynasty, Ningmin County was also known as Bailu County, because there were a large number of Chang people like Ku Wu who migrated and resettled in Bailu Plain. Therefore, it was later renamed Ningmin County, which originally meant immigrants from Ningzhou, Gansu. The bathing ditch is indeed the whale ditch of later generations, but at this time, the bathing ditch was indeed a bit small. There was no reservoir built in later generations, so there was not much water storage. After finally determining his current position, Zhang Chao felt a little relieved. Zhang Chao followed Ku Wu to fetch water and chatted while walking. Although Ku Wu is a Chang people, their ancestors have immigrated since the 16 Kingdoms period. According to him, at that time, the court moved 5,000 Chang households here at once. Therefore, the entire Ningning County actually has a large number of Chang people, but after so many years, hundreds of years have passed, so these Chang people are actually no different from the Han people. Before crossing the river, Zhang Chao actually visited Bailuyuan several times. He used to live in Xi'an, not far from here, and rode several times with his cycling friends, especially in this bathing ditch. In later times, the water volume of Whale Gully was much larger than it is now at the border of Baqiao District and Chang'an District. The scenery in the ditch is beautiful, and the scenery is different all year round. In spring, the mountains and flowers are everywhere, and summer is cool again. There are also many clear springs and waterfalls, which are quite rare. Ko Wu can be considered a native of Zhangjiagu, but on the contrary, Zhang's father actually settled in a foreign place. In this village with only a few dozen households, there are over 20 soldiers from the same military headquarters, but they are divided into several groups. Unlike what Zhang Chao had imagined, these soldiers were not different from ordinary people in their daily lives. They were not military households, but civilian households, and were also under the jurisdiction of the local government when not in battle. They don't live in the military camp either, but live together with ordinary people. But what sets them apart from ordinary people is that they do not have to pay rent for the land they grow, which is also a tax. When our soldiers are not engaged in war and are not conscripted, they also need to be divided into shifts to guard the camp. Usually, they also take turns attending training at the military headquarters. Ko Wu filled 2 buckets of water and carried them on his shoulders as he walked back, walking briskly in the unmelted snow. The government troops of the Tang Dynasty were mostly concentrated in the Guangzhou and Hedong regions. In the Tang Dynasty, which was mainly based on the government army system, they also took turns to draw local government troops to guard the capital. Set shift times according to different distances. For example, within 500 miles, there is a military mansion located within 500 miles of the capital. Soldiers are divided into 5 groups, each group rotating for more than 2 months a year. The farthest one is the 12th shift, and each shift only needs to be rotated for 1 month. But they spent more time on the road. In addition to the military training, there is also a need for annual training during the agricultural break. In addition, the military mansion maintains a quarter of its soldiers to exercise and defend in the military mansion year-round, which also requires rotation. In fact, the burden on the soldiers is not light, but most people who want to become soldiers cannot do so. They have to be small landlords or self-farmers. Not only do they have to have money in their families, but they also have to have many brothers. Having property at home is the only way to afford armor, military equipment, mules, and horses. There are many brothers in the family. Although the burden of being a prefectural soldier is not light, it is also a rare opportunity for ordinary children from humble families to enter politics with military achievements, so there are still many people who aspire to become prefectural soldiers. Ko Wu's family is quite good, and there are also many brothers. Although Zhang's father is an old bachelor, he is an experienced veteran who has fought for half his life. Uncle Wu, how much land has the court allocated to you? My house is divided into 18 acres. When Ko Wu answered this question, he was clearly satisfied with the 18 acres of land. But this result surprised Zhang Chao. He remembered that the average field system in the Tang Dynasty was 100 acres per acre, of which 20 acres were permanent land and 80 acres were divided into several plots. How come it's the turn of the government soldiers, but they only have 18 acres instead? Ko Wu only chuckled when he heard Zhang Chao's question. Every ding has an average of 1 hectare of land, which is what you mean by Quanxiang's average of land. In those areas, there are more public lands and less population, so the government can grant land in full according to the upper limit of 1 ding to 100 acres of average land. However, our area is a narrow and cramped capital, with more people and less land, where is there so much land to grant? It's already very good to be granted 10 or 8 acres. 100 acres per person is only the maximum limit. Zhangjiagu is a place that is already close to the capital, and there are also many people here. However, Zhangjiagu is the middle boundary of the White Deer Plateau, and there are many valleys here, so the land is relatively scarce. In addition, many lands are still owned, so there are fewer public lands. The Kowujia family used to have some land, so when it came to equal land, the people here were equal land, but what was equal was the public land here. After averaging the numbers, when dividing them down, we also need to subtract the private fields that the landlords already have. Kowu originally had 12 acres of land in his hands, as the soldiers were given preferential treatment. Each person had 30 acres of land, but because he already had 12 acres, he was only allocated 18 acres in the end. And Zhang's father originally had no land, so he allocated 30 acres as planned. 30 acres of land may sound like a lot, but the land in Zhangjiagu is inferior to that in other villages, and the agricultural technology in this era is not advanced, with widespread planting and limited harvest. Especially Uncle Zhang often has to go to the camp to guard and go to war, which often delays the farming season. I defeated Wang Shichong in Dojianda this year, and now I see that the world is finally at peace. The days ahead will be better. Kowu was very optimistic, thinking that life is getting better day by day, at least much better than in the chaotic era of the late Sui dynasty earlier. Becoming a prefectural soldier and dedicating several months of the year to guard and train guards can exempt one from renting. Zhang Chao's footsteps slowed down, and he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. It is obvious that although Zhangjiagu is a suburban resident living at the foot of the imperial city, their lives are not very good. Zhang's father is over 50 years old, blind in one eye, with many scars on his body, but he still has to go to the battlefield to fight. The Tang Dynasty gave him 30 acres of land, but the harvest was meager. There was only one earthen cellar in the house, and there was not even a woman in the house. At least we need to build another cellar, otherwise he won't be able to keep squeezing the same bed with his father in the future. The new cellar may not be in a hurry for a while, but Zhang Chao feels that something must be built immediately. That's the heated Kong. Living in a dilapidated cave in icy and snowy conditions, there is still air leakage everywhere, and one can wake up several times in a night from freezing. To live in a cave, one must use a heated Kong, otherwise this winter won't be able to pass. As Zhang Chao walked towards the dilapidated cave, he firmly believed in himself. The people of the Tang dynasty seemed to not know how to build a heated Kong, but Zhang Chao's mind suddenly moved. Isn't it true that he had found a way to get rich? It won't be long before I get a promotion and salary increase, become the general manager, become the CEO, marry Bai Fumei, and reach the pinnacle of my life. Just thinking about it, I'm a little excited. Thank you for your tips and support. During the new book period, please cast more recommended votes to support it. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. 100 Useless Things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. 100 Useless Things. Zhang Chao was walking back to the village when his casual shoes made a creaking sound on the unmelted snow, leaving footprints on the snow. Without a down jacket or warm underwear, the patched linen jacket on his body couldn't block the howling winter wind. Zhang Chao shivered and stretched out his hand to tighten his collar. The weather is very cold and the air is good. Zhangjiagu is shrouded in white snow, and the trees in the village are all bare with ice edges. After turning around from outside, Zhang Chao found that his father was really poor. There is only one very dilapidated cellar, and there is only one room, which is dark. A dark bed, a shabby low table. A cellar of less than 30 square meters serves as both a bedroom and kitchen, as well as a living room. Upon entering the cellar, there was a black earthen stove, with an iron pot on top and a wooden cabinet standing next to it, which was also black and lacked a leg, resembling a bowl cabinet. In front of the stove door, there are still piles of split wood and a bundle of wheat stalks. The place inside the cellar is a bed, a simple wooden bed with only a very thin quilt and dry grass on it, especially the pillow made of round wood. To be honest, Zhang Chao never thought that Zhang's father would be so poor. At least he can be considered a commanding officer, he looks so destitute. The only valuable thing in this family is Mr. Zhang's equipment. At the bedside, there is a wooden frame covered with Zhang's father's armor, a shiny and polished shining armor, and the two heart-protecting copper mirrors on the chest of the armor can both be used as mirrors. Dad's iron spear, horizontal sword, bow and arrow are all set aside. A veteran who has been fighting for half a life for decades, when he approaches old age, apart from the scars on his body, there is only this set of armor and weapons left to accompany him and witness him. Zhang Chao is very grateful to his father. He has also lived such a difficult life, and surprisingly, he kindly brought himself back and even took him as his son. If I had met someone else, I probably wouldn't have been so kind. Maybe I have to think about how to explain my origin. Thinking of this, Zhang Chao was truly grateful to his father and made up his mind to settle down here. Dad is still chopping wood at the door. As winter approaches, we need to prepare more firewood to keep it dry. Zhang Chao planned to help make breakfast, but he stood inside and looked around for a while, but couldn't find where the food at home was. Dad, where is the food at home? I'll cook. Dad stopped his long axe and said, "Are you hungry? If you're hungry, you'll cook and eat. The grain is in the jar next to the cupboard." Zhang Chao just realized that there was a jar next to the dark cupboard, and if he didn't notice, he thought it was a kimchi jar. Zhang Chao opened it and found a grain bag inside. He picked up the bag, but it was empty inside. In the first year of Wude, my father abandoned Wang Shichong and joined Tang. In the second year of Wude, King Li Shimin of Sui and Qin conquered Lu Wuzhou in Hedong. From the third year of Wude to the fourth year of Wude, he fought against Wang Shichong and Dou Jianda in Hunan, and only returned home during a short period of military rest each year. Especially this year, starting from February and continuing until now in October. In fact, although Wang Shichong and Dou Jianda were both conquered, surrendered, or beheaded, Dou Jianda's former subordinates, Lu Haida, rebelled in Hebei and have now restored most of Dou Jianda's former territory. Although my father divided 30 acres of land, he continued to fight outside and had no time to cultivate it. The land was rented out to others for cultivation. However, at the beginning of the founding of the country after the chaos, the people of Zhangjiagu had more or less 20 to 30 acres of land per person. In the absence of cattle and horses, they couldn't afford their own land. Moreover, due to the drought this year, even in the Zhangjiagu area on the Guanzhong Plain, the yield in the fields is not high. Dad, what kind of food? Carrying an empty grain bag, Zhang Chao helplessly shouted to his father outside the door. I can't believe that once I cross over, not only will I have to suffer from cold, but I will also have to go hungry. Is there any grain in the jar? What's up? I'll go to Ko Wu's house to collect some later, and in the afternoon I'll go to the military mansion to collect some. Dad looked very calm. He put down his axe, clapped his hands, and walked into the house. You wait for me, I'll go get some food and come back, said the old man, carrying a noodle bag and leaving. Zhang Chao stood inside, somewhat dazed. He, who comes from later generations, never imagined that one day he would worry about the issue of food, nor did he realize that he would really have to borrow food to make a living. After staying for a while, he walked to the bedside where his bag was placed. Dad never moved, a backpack. Open the bag, there is a notebook, a tablet, a camera, a charger, a power bank, a mobile phone, a key, a wallet, a headset, cigarettes, a lighter, a bottle of perfume, a packet of paper towels, chewing gum, glasses, and a cigarette lighter. Data cable, USB flash drive, notepad, a few pens, and several magazines and books. Finally, a box of condoms was found. The more Zhang Chao flipped through, the more speechless he felt. He had never actually noticed that his bag contained so many things. Razors, Swiss military knives, umbrellas, mirrors, throat lozenges, as well as a compass and a pair of binoculars. There is also a thermos cup, a pack of chocolate. There is also a pair of shoes and a set of changed clothes. Plus the clothes and shoes I'm still wearing, as well as the watch in my hand and the phone in my pocket. Zhang Chao found that he had brought a lot of things. Take out one or two of these things and go to Chang'an. Maybe you can exchange them for some money, right? Zhang Chao thought to himself, not to mention anything else, just that simple mirror. Tang Dynasty people probably haven't seen anything so high-end, grand, and upscale, have they? A small mirror bought for more than 10 yuan may become some rare glass treasure mirror when taken to Chang'an. Not to mention exchanging for 18,000 gold and silver or 18,000 kilograms of grain. Is it always possible? Zhang Chao couldn't help but have some fantasies in his heart. But then he put aside his little excitement in his heart. If he boldly took such a rare item to trade in Chang'an, it would be like a child holding a piece of gold and flaunting it in the market. Pifu is innocent, he harbors a guilty conscience. A common small mirror may be a treasure in the Tang Dynasty. Zhang Chao dispelled that thought and continued to look at the things in his bag, each of which was out of place with this era. Even a pair of glasses is very special. No, when you still have no knowledge of this era, it's best not to take these out recklessly. Thinking of this, Zhang Chao put everything back in his bag, even the watch in his pocket was put into his bag. I took out the phone from my pocket and shook it with some reluctance, but there was still no signal. With a bitter smile, Zhang Chao turned off his phone and put it in his bag. Closed the zipper, fastened the password lock, and Zhang Chao stuffed the bag under the bed. Apart from under the bed, he currently has no other place to stuff it, but fortunately, his father has never touched his bag and he probably won't rummage through it in the future. Before his father could come back, Zhang Chao, who was idle, began to look at the bed at home. A simple wooden bed without proper bedding, without anyone living in it for a long time, so it still carries a damp and musty smell. Although the winter in Chang'an is not as humid and cold as in Jiangnan, it is dry and cold. However, it is still too cold to wear a thin blanket with only a dry straw cover at night. A heated Kong must be heated. For a northerner, a heated Kong is no stranger. Perhaps those born in the 1990s and 2000s in cities are no longer familiar with these things, but Zhang Chao is very clear about them. It's not difficult to build a heated Kong, and burning it won't waste too much firewood. The cellar is not very large, but it is still enough to have a heated Kong inside. Zhang Chao used to have a Kong at home when he was a child, and he had seen it many times and was very familiar with it. He doesn't even need to draw anything. He immediately has a structural diagram in his mind. It doesn't cost much to build a heated Kong. Mix it with some yellow mud and clay bricks, and after drying, it can be used. With clay bricks, he can build a Kong himself. It's not difficult to build a Kong and a chimney. Once the Kong is built, he can weave a Kong mat. There is no need to connect the stove to the heated Kong, just leave the stove mouth under the heated Kong. The chimney is a bit troublesome and needs to be repaired outside the house, at least 4 meters high. Bricks are also quite time-consuming and labor-intensive. Dad hummed a tune and came back with half a bag of grain. Ko Wu's family took half a pocket of millet and also weighed 2 pounds of white noodles. We couldn't eat enough this morning. Zhang Chao was a bit confused about what it was, but seeing his father start kneading noodles, he also guessed that it was probably noodles. Shaanxi people love noodles. Even in the Tang Dynasty, noodles were still the main food. In this era, there is no mechanism for noodles, and ordinary people actually eat less noodles, let alone noodles. Eating white noodles is a rare luxury. And if you want to eat noodles, you have to make them all by hand, knead the noodles yourself, and then roll and cut them yourself. Dad's craftsmanship is good, and he was very energetic. The white flour was finally rolled out into a thin noodle skin, and then cut into strips with a kitchen knife. Do you know how to set fire? Dad asked with a smile. I know. Zhang Chao sat in front of the Kong and started to make a fire, but when he sat down, he found that he didn't know where to start. I pulled a straw in my hand, but what should I light it with? Lighter. Match. He actually has a lighter of his own, which is made of metal and looks good and useful. But what should the people of the Tang Dynasty use to start a fire? The flint is there. Dad's eyes kept an eye on it, timely guiding him through the maze. Zhang Chao reached out to a small hole in the wall and found 2 stones. Firestone, this is the spark of the people. Seeing these 2 stones, Zhang Chao immediately knew how to use them. But when he started tapping, he found that it was not easy. After tapping more than a dozen times, sparks occasionally splashed up, but it just couldn't be triggered. The firewood may be a bit damp, let me do it. Dad couldn't bear to watch anymore and walked over to take the fire sickle. With a few slaps, sparks splashed onto the firewood, and then a flame lit up. Dad began to puff up his cheeks and blow on the fire to help it burn. The flame grew bigger and bigger. The fire finally caught fire. Zhang Chao quickly grabbed a straw and added it to the stove, but in no time, a burst of smoke rolled out, and then the fire went out unexpectedly. Zhang Chao puffed his cheeks into the stove and blew fiercely, but the smoke made him burst into tears, but the fire didn't ignite. In the end, Dad made another move, picked up the tongs a few times, blew a few more times, and the fire started to burn again. When the fire starts to burn, be slow and don't add too much firewood. Zhang Chao sat there feeling a bit depressed, not realizing that as a passerby, he couldn't even burn a fire well. He said to himself, it's not my fault, it's just that this stove is not good. I used to burn the stove when I was a child, but it burns much better than this. This stove is really difficult to cook. At this moment, he had the time to carefully examine the stove, and Zhang Chao realized that it was indeed not working. Zhang Chao's family used to use stoves that were easier to cook than this. Later, when he grew up, he even introduced a type of firewood-saving stove that was better at burning, and also saved firewood, resulting in higher efficiency. It seems that not only will a hot Kong be built, but even this stove needs to be renovated. Dad, this stove is not very easy to cook. I know there is a type of stove that is more fuel-efficient and better at burning. How about we change the stove at home? Seeking recommended tickets and collecting them. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Ways to make money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Ways to make money. Dad was adding water from the water tank to the iron pot when he heard the words and looked at him with a smile. Did it used to be with your master when we were in the mountains before? Dad seemed to truly believe Zhang Chao's words about living in seclusion in the mountains with his master. Well, that stove was also made by my master himself, and it's really useful. It's easy to burn and save firewood, and there's no smoke yet. The fire won't go out at all, and it can save more than half of the firewood. Zhang Chao didn't exaggerate. Before Zhang Chao's stove was changed, boiling a pot of water would take about 15 to 18 minutes, but after changing the firewood-saving stove, boiling a pot of water only took 12 minutes and saving more than half of the firewood. Not all stoves are like this, there's no need to change them, just burn them like this. Father Zhang is a martial artist and now a widower, so he doesn't care too much about these things. He usually burns them like this. Zhang Chao wants to change the stove, not only to make it more convenient for him to cook in the future. But he feels that this is a business opportunity, and he hasn't even borrowed the surplus food from his family, so his life is not good. Besides, there is only such a cellar, and now Zhang Chao is also a part of this family. He hopes that his family can live a better life, eat white noodles, and live in a big house. But relying solely on farming is not very realistic with the production technology of this era. Dad, you said if our stove is improved, it can really burn well and save firewood. Do you think you're willing to use it? Of course I'm willing to use it. Dad pulled the cut-wide noodles into small pieces and threw them into the pot while pulling. Zhang Chao could tell that this Tang Dynasty noodle dish was just a noodle soup. So you said there's such a good firewood stove, are others willing to change it? Of course, everyone is willing to use good ones, Dad nodded. Nowadays, when cooking, there are no gas stoves or rice cookers, and everyone has to use a firewood stove. Throughout the year, a lot of firewood needs to be burned. Countryside people spend a lot of time going up the mountains to gather firewood every year, while those city dwellers, who burn firewood, can only buy it. Countryside people can still use local materials to chop firewood or burn wheat stalks, but for city dwellers, that is also a considerable expense. Even many rural people still take firewood as a sideline in their daily lives, and when they have free time, they chop firewood and send it to the city for sale. Zhang Chao chuckled. Dad, it's also winter now, and the fields are idle. The mountains are also sealed off, and everyone doesn't have much income when they are idle. You said we have this technology to help people change their stoves, which can also make some money. But if someone else changes their stove, they can save a lot of firewood and time in the future. Isn't that a good thing? Do you want to make money from this? Mr. Zhang was somewhat surprised, and his speed of pulling noodles slowed down. Zhang Chao also does not conceal his thoughts, making money, improving life, and living a better life. Zhang's father became more and more surprised as he listened. Do you really have such a useful firewood-saving stove, and you know how to build it? Yes, Zhang Chao didn't hesitate. Old-style stoves are structurally unreasonable, with incomplete combustion, poor insulation, and high heat loss, resulting in relatively low efficiency. The biggest disadvantage is that the stove door is large and the stove chamber is large, and there is no stove grate, some even have no chimney, and the hanging fire is also high. The new type of fuel-efficient stove has been transformed into a small stove with a small stove door and a small stove chamber, adding grates and chimneys, and lowering the hanging fire. This structure is more reasonable, with a complete ventilation system, allowing firewood to burn more fully. Especially with the addition of insulation layer and fire blocking ring, the swirling distance and time of high temperature flue gas in the stove are greatly extended, reducing heat loss. The setting of the stove grate also allows wood ash to fall into the ash chamber in a timely manner, maintaining good ventilation in the stove and increasing oxygen. The energy-saving stove mainly achieves energy conservation from three aspects, making fuel combustion more complete, better heat transfer and insulation, and better utilizing waste heat. Zhang Chao explained the various characteristics of the new stove in words that his father could understand. Dad smiled happily. Xiaohua, that's really what you're saying. I didn't expect that even with a stove, there's so much to be said about it. Your master must be an amazing person. One method is universal, 100 methods are universal. Master has studied the study of grid and object. Zhang Chao couldn't explain how a monk who lived in seclusion in the deep mountains would study and improve his stove, so he could only use these forced words to explain. You said it well, one method can handle all 100 methods, and you are indeed a master. Zhang Chao chuckled and scratched his head. Alright, when I come back, I'll call Ku Wu and the others over and work together to modify this stove according to your method. If the new stove really works as you said, then it can also become something. Dad, if you say the stove is really useful, how much does it cost to change it? Dad continued to cook noodles and scolded with a smile, you don't seem like a monk, but rather a businessman. You have a very shrewd mind. It's really useful to collect money. If the villagers are willing to change the stove, they can go and help change it. Anyway, in winter, we have nothing to do. Just help people change the stove and make 2 meals a day. Whatever money you collect, it's all from the villagers. We can't be too focused on money. Zhang Chao was somewhat stunned. Just 2 meals a day. Dad, you're a bit too simple. Changing the stove is not just about doing some physical work, but also about technology. It's still exclusive technology. Modifying the stove can greatly save firewood and time. Isn't firewood money, isn't time money? How can this be called taking advantage of money? It's a reasonable labor compensation. Dad, it doesn't matter if we help the villagers make changes or not, but we don't know anyone outside. If they want to make changes, we should still do so. I'm not good money either, I just want to earn some money to repair our cellar. If we can find a suitable woman to accompany you, wouldn't it be even better? I'm telling you this, you're talking nonsense. The people of the self-sufficient classical agricultural era were simple, without too shrewd considerations for interests, and would not prioritize money. You can't say they have outdated ideas, but rather they are simple yet more humane. In the afternoon, I went to the military mansion. I haven't received the subsidy money in grain for this expedition yet, and I happen to need to buy some fish, meat, and clothes to come back. Tomorrow, we will hold some banquets and invite the villagers and village officials to come together. We will officially recognize our father and son and register with the government. Zhang's father is from a foreign land, and there are no other members of the Zhang family here. Originally, when he adopted Zhang Chao as his son, he had to obtain permission from the clan and finally register it on the genealogy. Just because of the war in the late Sui dynasty, many things were disrupted. Dad is here alone, but some procedures cannot be exempted. Holding a few banquet tables, inviting neighbors to come is also a witness. Inviting the official family to come is to register Zhang Chao's household. After this banquet, Zhang Chao truly became the son of Zhang's father, a member of the Zhangjiagu, and will also become a subject of the Tang Empire. Requesting recommended tickets, brothers. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Returning to the Cavalry Mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Returning to the Cavalry Mansion without stirring in the pot, Dad added some salt and something else. Is that lard? Lamb oil. Dad said as he picked a small piece and added it to the pot. Sheep oil is naturally the oil of sheep. Compared to lard, sheep oil has a higher fat content and also has a strong mutton smell. The taste is not good, and eating too much can also lead to obesity, so there are very few people who eat it in later generations, usually only adding it to a very small number of foods such as oil tea. Why don't you use sesame oil, tea oil, or vegetable oil? Zhang Chao asked. In later generations, vegetable oil became popular. Sesame oil essence is expensive, only the families of high-ranking officials can afford it. Dad explained in detail, and Zhang Chao finally understood that although vegetable oil had been available since the Han Dynasty, such as sesame oil, ebony oil, and red and blue flower seed oil during the southern and northern dynasties, the technology of extracting vegetable oil from plants was not yet very mature, so the price of vegetable oil such as sesame oil was extremely high and not affordable for ordinary people to afford. Ordinary families still eat animal oils such as cattle, sheep, and pigs. If a person is hungry, even ordinary food can become a delicacy in the world. Previously, Zhang Chao was also a foodie who loved various cuisines, including various cuisines from the north and south, and even various flavored snacks. Whenever there was a chance, he would definitely try them. The bowl in front of me was filled in a wooden bowl the size of a small basin, which was incredibly simple. It was a bowl of noodles and soup, with only a little crude salt and a little lamb oil in addition to water. Zhang Chao picked up a chopstick and put it into his mouth, but he didn't find it as unpleasant as he had imagined. Instead, he felt it was pretty good. Dad also filled a big bowl, and a pot of noodles just ran out. Eating at the door. Dad walked to the door holding a basin, then squatted down and ate it big. Zhang Chao followed suit and squatted at the door to eat. The entrance is open and bright, and people in Guangzhou love to squat and even eat while eating. Sometimes, they prefer to squat on the stool instead of sitting. Even in later generations, many Guangzhou people can still be found in rural areas to maintain this habit. Guangzhou people like to eat noodles, and at this time, they also like to refer to noodles as cakes, soup cakes, steamed cakes, and cut cakes. Although Dad is in his early 50s, his appetite is amazing. Zhang Chao estimated that the basin could hold at least 5 pounds. It is said that people who often do physical work have a large appetite, and those who join the army also have a large appetite. My father is a veteran of the old mansion, both a farmer and a soldier. He usually eats a lot of coarse grains and doesn't have as many vegetables to eat. He has fewer side dishes, and the people of Guangzhou are also accustomed to eating 2 meals a day, so each meal is usually quite large. Zhang Chao only ate less than 1/3 and felt full. Looking at the remaining half of the bowl of noodles and soup, Zhang Chao couldn't eat it anymore. Eat more, the next meal will be at night. Dad put down his bowl, which had already dried up all the noodles and soup. Looking at the remaining half of Zhang Chao's bowl, he said. I'm full, I can't eat enough. Are you really full? Or can't you eat the food? I don't usually have a big appetite, I'm really full. After Zhang Chao finished speaking, his father directly handed over his big bowl, and then pulled out the noodles with chopsticks and started eating them with a clattering sound. Watching my dad eat noodles can be a real pleasure at times. Half of the bowl of noodles, he quickly empties it into his mouth, then picks up the big bowl and drinks soup in large gulps. In just 2 bites, the noodles and soup are all dry again. Dad ate so much noodles alone and had a satisfying meal. After eating, it's still early. Dad picked up a bracelet and hung it on his shoulder, then picked up the iron gun in the corner of the wall. Let's go to the military mansion to collect money and food. Dad's iron gun looks very powerful. Dad, I'll help you carry a gun. Zhang Chao used to like these swords and halberds, but in reality, he didn't have the chance to get in touch with them, so he could only enjoy playing games. Seeing Dad's long spear, he wanted to see it better. Starting with an iron gun, Zhang Chao, who had originally planned to play 2 tricks immediately, almost missed it. This gun is so heavy. Dad seemed to have anticipated it, laughing as he watched Zhang Chao catch off guard. My gun is not an ordinary gun, but an iron gun. The gun is 10.4 meters long, the shaft is 1.3 meters long, and the shaft is 3 inches and 7 centimeters thick. It is made of hardwood. The head of the gun is flat and prismatic, 7 inches long, with a red tassel under the gun and an iron rod at the end, which is 3 inches long. Is this really made of hardwood? Why is it so heavy? Zhang Chao looked at the gun in his hand, the barrel was clearly made of iron. This gun weighs 15 pounds, which is indeed much heavier than a typical wooden gun. However, if it were an iron rod, it would not only weigh 15 pounds, it could weigh 40 or 50 pounds, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to move it. My gun is wrapped with iron wire on a hardwood rod, which can enhance the toughness of the handle. It is much stronger than a typical bamboo and wood handle, and can also maintain the elasticity of the handle. 15 pounds still surprised Zhang Chao. As far as he knows, a typical white wax stick gun weighs around 5 pounds. And this iron-wrapped spear weighs 15 pounds, although not as good as those 40 or 50-pound wrought iron spears, it is not something that ordinary people can use anymore. It must be someone with exceptional physical strength. I didn't expect my dad to look tall and thin, but he could use such an iron gun as a weapon. Dad looked at the iron gun with a hint of complexity in his eyes. Dad, this gun must have an extraordinary history, let's talk about it. Zhang Chao caught that gaze and quickly asked. Let's go, on the way. Dad led the way, and Zhang Chao followed behind with an iron gun weighing over 15 pounds. This iron gun was still bestowed by Duke Rongwa back then. Duke Rongwa came to protect his son, a native of Jiangdu, a famous general of the Sui dynasty, and a famous general of the Eastern Han dynasty who came to Shi Lai Huer was a legendary general who was raised by his aunt after his parents died in his early years. As an adult, he broke into the enemy's wedding banquet alone, personally stabbed the enemy in public, and then fled. He crossed the river to join the Sui army, repeatedly achieving military success. Later, he launched several expeditions to Liaodong and served as the commander-in-chief of the sea route, once attacking the city of Goguryeo. Later, following Yang Guang on a tour of Jiangdu, he was killed in a mutiny. As a famous general of the Sui dynasty, the weapon used to protect his son was an iron gun, a real iron gun. Lai Gong's physical strength is amazing, holding a long iron spear weighing 45 pounds. He has been fighting with an iron spear for many years, and it is difficult to have an enemy. Speaking of Lai Huer, the father was also full of admiration. He served under the command of Lai Huer back then, following him for many years and transitioning to the north and south. Because Lai Huer had amazing physical strength and was skilled in using iron spears, he selected tall and robust soldiers from the army as his personal guards, and then made 15-pound iron-wrapped spears for them. We can only use 15 pounds of iron to wrap the spear, but there are 2 people under the account of Lai Gong who can use 30.6 pounds of wrought iron spears. One is Lai Gong's 6 sons, Lai Lulang, to tidy it up, and the other is Qin Shubao from Shandong. Qin Shubao. Zhang Chao may not be aware of Lai Lulang, but how could Qin Shubao's name be unknown? Zhang's father thought that Zhang Chao didn't know who Qin Shubao was and explained to him with a smile. Shandong Qin Shubao is a famous general today. During the previous dynasty, he followed the command of Duke Lai, Zhang Shutuo, and Pei Renji from Shandong. Later, he went up to Wagong and joined Wang Shichong, ultimately abandoning Wang Shichong and joining the Tang Dynasty. 2 years ago, he accompanied the king of Qin to conquer Lu Wuzhou, and last year and this year, he also accompanied the king of Qin to conquer Wang Shichong and Doujianda. He is now honored with the title of Duke of Zhuge and appointed as the right third commander of the Qin prince's mansion. Speaking of Qin Shubao, Zhang's father felt a little sigh in his heart. When Qin Shubao joined under Huer's command, he was already the team leader of the personal guard Iron Spear team who came to Huer. Speaking of which, Qin Shubao was once a small soldier under his command. However, Qin Shubao was intelligent and skilled in martial arts, and soon showed his outstanding abilities, earning the recognition of the Duke. Later, Qin Xiong returned to her hometown due to the loss of her mother, and even sent him to bring gifts to mourn for her children. Afterwards, Qin Xiong transferred to the command of Zhang Shutuo, the first fierce general at the end of the Sui dynasty, and repeatedly made military achievements. After that, there won't be much contact between my father and Qin Xiong. When bidding farewell to Qin Xiong, it was after the Jiangdu mutiny and the killing of the king by Yuan Hua that Lai Huer was killed. Later, he followed Yuan Hua and returned north, but was defeated by Li Mi of Wagong before going to Wagong to see the general of cavalry in the tent who was already Li Mi of Wagong at that time. However, at that time, his father became a young man instead. During the Jiangdu mutiny, my father had already become an infantry colonel. The Sui system consisted of 10 people in a group, 50 people in a team, 100 people in a brigade, and 200 people in a regiment. A team leader is established, a brigade commander is established, and a regiment commander is established. Going up there is the Eagle Strike General, the Eagle Yang General, and other generals. Jiangdu mutiny, Lai Huer was killed for loyalty to Yang Guang, and his father almost died. His left eye was blind during that time. The father, who was destined but did not die, was carried north by Yuan Huaji, but was demoted to the rank of a large soldier. When he arrived at Wagong and saw Qin Xiong again, Qin Xiong was already Li Mi's cavalry general, while his father, Qin Xiong's early boss, was a blind and injured cook. Qin Xiong transferred her father to her command and wanted him to be his lieutenant. However, he was rejected by his father. At that time, he was blind, with injuries on his body and a low mood. He couldn't even play with an iron gun. He became an ordinary personal guard under Qin Xiong's command. In the future, Qin Xiong and many other former Wagong tribes abandoned Wang Shichong and joined Li Tang, and their father also followed suit. After arriving at Li Tang, my father originally wanted to retire and return to the field, and did not want to fight anymore. But the world was not yet determined, and the war was not yet peaceful. At that time, Li Tang only relied on the two regions of Zhanghe East. Not long after, the land where Li Tang started was taken over by Lu Wuzhou in Hedong. Li Tang's superiors and subordinates attached great importance to it, and Emperor Li Yuan ordered the recruitment of veterans and young men from the entire Guangzhou region to fully compete for Hedong. The father, who had already been released from armor, had to pick up his iron gun and join the military again. The father did not reveal Qin Xiong's name, and the one-eyed father, due to his years of military experience, eventually became the leader of the gang. He Dong conquered Lu Wuzhou, and the Central Plains fought against Wang Shichong in Dojinda. In the blink of an eye, they fought another 3 years of war. Zhang Chao was really surprised. He couldn't believe that the world-renowned door god Qin Shubao had even been a soldier under his father's command. If you look for General Qin, he will definitely take care of you, right? Uncle Bao has benevolence and righteousness, but I don't want to trouble him as an old man who never dies, my father replied calmly. My father is truly a legendary man. He once quelled the Jiangnan rebellion for the Sui dynasty, and fought in Goguryeo for the 3 conquests of the Great Sui dynasty. He followed famous generals such as Huer, Yuan Huaji, Li Mi, and Wang Shichong. Throughout his life, he once served as an infantry colonel, but now he is just an ordinary commander of the Imperial Guard in the Tang Dynasty. Looking at this tall and thin man, I couldn't believe that his life was so tumultuous. The military mansion where Zhang Chao and his team went is very close to Zhangjiagu. The Tang Dynasty started with Hedong, but based on Guangzhou. The Tang Wei Fu army, based on the army of the government, was mainly concentrated in the Guangzhou area. Divide Guangzhou into 12 paths, with armies under each path and prefectures under each army. The Grand Mansion has 1,200 people, the Central Mansion has 1,000 people, and the Lower Mansion has 800 people. The small Guangzhou plain is dotted with hundreds of military academies. Several prefectures are located in the White Deer Plain on the Ba River. The Bashang area was originally located south of Chang'an, the capital of the Tang Dynasty, and its superior geographical location made it extremely important for military purposes. To the east of Bashang lies Tongguan, while to the south lies Lantian Pass and Wuguan. In Ningning County on Bashang, there is almost 1 township and 1 military mansion. The mansion where my father is located is in Bailu Township, 5 miles away from Zhangjiagu. A chariot and cavalry mansion with 800 people, led by a general of chariots and cavalry. However, the chariot and cavalry mansion was under the jurisdiction of the 16 guards mansion of the Tang Dynasty. The dispatch and requisition power of the chariot and cavalry mansion belonged to the emperor, and there were no military orders or tiger talismans from the emperor or the Ministry of War. If more than 10 soldiers were dispatched to the chariot and cavalry mansion defense area, it would be considered a rebellion. Normally, this 800-person White Deer chariot and cavalry mansion is divided into 5 batches each year, with 160 people in each batch. The remaining 640 people in the Wei mansion will be divided into 4 classes to train and guard in the chariot and cavalry mansion, with each class consisting of 160 people. In the event of war, the court conscripts and each prefecture sends troops according to orders. The generals selected by the court will lead the troops, and after the war is over, they will return to the court and the troops will be returned to the government. This is also a system of separating soldiers and generals. The chariots, cavalry, and cavalry generals of the Wei mansion only manage the daily affairs of the Wei mansion, but cannot mobilize and unify troops. Soldiers from each prefecture are called to battle, and the soldiers recruited from various regions also need to be reorganized. Zhang Chao listened and felt that this cavalry and cavalry mansion was somewhat similar to the later Armed Forces Department. The cavalry general was also a minister of armed forces, in charge of the militia. It was not their turn to fight, and they were responsible for daily management and training. The soldiers of the Tang Dynasty were not just militia. The chariot and cavalry mansion stationed in Bailu Township, Ningning County is fully staffed with 800 soldiers. Most of the soldiers in the prefecture are young and strong, selected from the surrounding areas, and there are also some veterans like my father who are assigned here and then give them land to settle down in the surrounding areas. This approach ensures the low management cost and rapid recruitment ability of the Wei government. The administrative divisions of the Tang Dynasty today are based on the system of prefectures and counties. Li Tang founded the country and changed the county system of Emperor Yang of Sui to a prefecture county system. The state and county were the foundation of Tang Dynasty administration, and below the county level, there were also townships and neighborhoods. 100 households are miles, and 5 miles are townships. The entire Bashang, also known as the White Deer Plain in later times, is now Ningning County. Ningning County is divided into more than 10 townships, and Zhangjiagu is under the jurisdiction of Zhangjiali in Bailu Township. The White Deer Cavalry Mansion is located in White Deer Village, where White Deer Township is located. This is where the township government is located, and there is also a military headquarters stationed, making it a nearby center with a simple market. 100-meter-long street with residential buildings on both sides. Today is not the day for the market, so the dirt road street appears very deserted. Only 3 or 5 shops were open, but there was a cold reception in front of them. The military camp is located at the end of the street, which is as simple as a rural elementary school. In the early morning, there was no sound of practice. In front of the camp gate, behind the yellow soil wall, 2 dirty men were crouching in the morning sun with their sleeves wrapped around them, and their wooden poles and long spears were leaning crookedly against their arms. Looking at these 2 goods, Zhang Chao couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Isn't this the Tang Dynasty Imperial Guards who will unify the Central Plains and dominate the world for the next century without any enemies? This is too rough." What? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Promotion and Medal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Promotion and Medal. As the morning sun rises, golden sunlight falls on the unmelted snow, driving away the accumulated cold of the night and bringing a hint of warmth. Zhang Chao, carrying his father's 15-pound iron gun, finally arrived at the gate of the White Deer Cavalry Mansion. The soldiers on duty squatting on the wall and basking in the sun at the entrance quickly welcomed him. "Iron Gun brother, you came so early today. Hey, today I even found a young man to help you carry a gun. Who's this young man from? He looks so handsome." Dad grinned and said happily to the 2 goods, "This is my son, Zhang Chao. When did the iron gun come out with such a big son? You think we're being deceitful? I just received it, can't I?" "Really, then we have to congratulate you well." The 2 of them warmly looked around Zhang Chao. "That's a double blessing, old iron gun. We have some good news to tell you. I heard from the general that you are going to award medals. At present, it is the beginning of the founding of the Tang Dynasty. Although the victory in the Central Plains War has just been achieved, the world is still uncertain. Therefore, Li Tang was also very generous towards the soldiers of the Tang Dynasty. Those soldiers who go to the battlefield have a great chance of receiving medals if they have made military achievements. In order to reward the soldiers, Emperor Li Yuan of the Tang Dynasty also adopted the official titles of Yang Guang and Yang Jian as rewards for their achievements. These titles are known as the national honors. However, at this time, the title and official were still 2 sets of things that went hand in hand. The characteristic of a noble title is leisure, while the characteristic of a noble official is scattered. A noble title has no rank or rank, while a noble official has a rank or even promotion at this time. Since Li Yuan's uprising in Taiyuan, in order to win people's hearts, he has bestowed a large number of honorary titles. At this point, it has become somewhat rampant. Therefore, the court is also making adjustments to this, with the intention of abolishing the rampant honorary titles and integrating them into the system of honorary officials. Under the name of Guochu Sun, there are actually two sets of honorary titles. One is the title of a scattered official named after various high-ranking officials, and the other is the title of a scattered official named after the Zhou and Sui military positions such as commander and general. These two sets of honors, the first set is mainly awarded to those local and influential figures, and the latter set is mainly awarded to meritorious soldiers in the military. Of course, the most valuable one is the official system led by Shangzhou Kingdom. In the later Tang Dynasty, the separation of civil and military positions and the separation of actual officials gradually formed two sets of separation positions, which did not ultimately integrate into the system of honorary officials. The separation of civil and military officials later became an important criterion for determining the rank of Tang Dynasty officials. The appointment of an official is preceded by the appointment of a casual position, which determines the rank, while the appointment of a professional official determines their position. But nowadays, the titles of casual and casual officials have become excessive, and they have only become a name, which is vastly different from those of distinguished officials. At the very least, the honorific officer has an honorific title, while the honorific title does not have an honorific title. Although my father is currently only a commander of the imperial army, he also bears the name of National Primordial Merit and is the 8th rank Grand Commander among the 10 ranks of scattered officials with National Primordial Merit. The Grand Tutor sounds very trendy, but it's just a title. When awarding a title, there will be a reward of money and food, and then there will be no other benefits. Therefore, when my father heard that he was going to be honored again, he didn't take it seriously. Ouch, you old iron gun, and you have it on. I tell you, it's not a decorated name, it's a decorated officer. A military cavalry officer in the middle of the 12th round of a decorated officer. The rank of an official is 12 times, while the rank of a military cavalry captain is 1 time, which is the lowest level. Even at the lowest level, the martial cavalry captain is considered to be of the 7th rank. A distinguished official has a rank but no position, in other words, he enjoys treatment at a certain level but does not manage affairs. The most important way to enjoy this treatment is to award land to officials. The military cavalry captain who turned around was awarded 60 acres of land according to the system. This is a permanent land award and does not need to be returned like dividing land by mouth. Moreover, with higher ranks of officials, children can still enter the officialdom under the shadow. Oh, really? Dad seems a bit too calm. Zhang Chao believes that his father is a person who has experienced great storms and was once a colonel. The infantry colonel is of the 6th rank and is also a civil servant. Although Zhang Chao did not hear his father mention that he had previously been awarded the rank of scattered official in the Sui dynasty, he had a rank of 6 in official positions. As a seasoned colonel, his rank would definitely not be low. Under normal circumstances, the rank of a military general is higher than that of an official. After a long time of wind and rain, my father, who is accustomed to seeing big waves, seems to have lost some pride and grace. In the eyes of the inexperienced soldiers of the Guangzhou prefecture, they regarded the 7th rank military cavalry captain as quite impressive, as one official could divide 60 acres of land. But Dad is very calm. In the morning, many soldiers from the White Deer Chariot and Cavalry Mansion arrived one after another. Many of them were summoned to return home from the last expedition and now come to receive their rewards. The deployment of government troops is not a one-time recruitment of all soldiers from the entire military mansion, but rather, like the deployment of troops and garrisons, is also carried out in batches. My father was last summoned to go on a military expedition for over 10 months and nearly a year. According to Tang Dynasty regulations, if he goes on a military expedition for more than 10 months, he will be exempt from the rank of Fan Shang within 10 months after returning. Originally, the White Deer Chariot and Cavalry Mansion was held in May, with 160 people in groups and each group taking turns in the previous month. I have to take 2 rounds in October, and now that I have been on the expedition for nearly a year and have returned, the task of staying guard for the next 2 rounds, totaling 2 months, has been waived. This year's expedition to the Central Plains was a siege battle against Luoyang, and the battle against Dojianda's Tiger Prison was not particularly prolonged and intense. Therefore, most of the soldiers from the White Deer Chariot and Cavalry Mansion who went on the expedition have returned. Government soldiers do not have food, salaries, or allowances, but they receive subsidies for training, guarding, military campaigns, and expeditions. Especially when conscripted for battle, there are subsidies, rewards for meritorious service, and rewards if the outcome of the war is good. Zhang Chao stood on the campus of the Cheki Mansion, carrying his father's iron gun, and found that there was no trace of a military camp here. It was more like a rural market. Lively and noisy. 800 people from the Chariot and Cavalry Mansion, 160 people are stationed at the Imperial Guards in the capital. 116 are trained and on duty in the military mansion. The remaining 3 classes, 2 classes, are farming at home. The last class, 116, is the father and his team. They returned from the expedition and today they all rushed to the military mansion to receive rewards and subsidies. The group on duty no longer trains today, and they are all gathered on the playground around the returning comrades or villagers. The 800 soldiers of the White Deer Chariot and Cavalry Mansion are either neighbors or relatives. The military system of the Tang Dynasty was actually inherited from the northern Zhou Dynasty, from the Sui Dynasty to the Tang Dynasty, based on the equal field system. 5 households are for protection, 100 households are for miles, and 5 miles are for townships. During the Tang Dynasty, the selection of soldiers was conducted every 3 years, with a basic conscription of 2 soldiers per year. According to the calculation, there are 5 households covered and 2 ding per household. More specifically, it means that those with equal wealth tend to be stronger, those with equal power tend to be richer, and those with equal financial resources tend to prioritize having more people. Once selected, there is a military name, which means lifelong service from the age of 21 to 61. The soldiers of the White Deer Chariot and Cavalry Mansion mostly come from the White Deer Township and several surrounding townships, so everyone is familiar with the 8 villages from 10 miles away. Dad and his team went on a military expedition, and when they returned, there were still over 150 people. Less than 10 died and more than 10 were injured, but none of them were too serious. This can be considered a very good result. The 2 groups of soldiers gathered together, just like the old farmers gathering at a banquet in the countryside. 3 in a group, 5 in a group, squatting on any piece of land to chat. When it came to the death of the soldier from the same regiment and brigade, everyone sighed together. Some even said that he was still the 3rd brother of the wife of my 3rd uncle's eldest brother, but unfortunately, he was still so young. Everyone talked about the past of the war victims together, talked about the situation on the battlefield at that time, and also talked about the pitiful orphans and widows he left behind. But after all, people have not complained too much about the war or the court. Serving in the military and fighting is seen as a matter of course by everyone, just like farming and exchanging imperial provisions. It was almost noon, and everyone was already chatting. At that moment, the general of chariots and cavalry came out. There are also officers from the Chariot and Cavalry Mansion, including the Gongxi warehouse, as well as officers from various levels such as Colonel, Brigade Commander, and Brigade Commander. On the way back from the battle, Dad and his team reported their achievements in the Central Plains War to Chang'an early, and they had already rushed to verify it during this period. Now, the military achievements have been verified by the authorities, and they have begun to distribute military merit rewards and military subsidies for the victorious soldiers. The general of chariots and cavalry is a man in his 50s, who is very sturdy and has gray hair. His subordinates, such as the colonels, looked very commanding, but the brigade commanders waiting further down were not much different from ordinary farmers. On the campus, in addition to more than 300 soldiers, there were also many onlookers, including family members of the army like Zhang Chao, as well as some residents from the countryside. Today, the military camp is so lively that even some clever villagers have set up stalls or set up cooking stoves at the entrance of the camp, starting to pancake and cook noodles, preparing to take advantage of this opportunity to do some business. General Chariot and Cavalry did not obstruct or drive away these civilians who entered the military camp, allowing everyone to stand or squat and watch the excitement. The amount of money in food subsidies for the expedition is not much, and without military achievements, the rewards are very small, especially with money. The newly minted Caiyuan Tongbao from the Tang Dynasty was bright and yellow, but many soldiers only received 300 to 400 pieces. This quantity surprised Zhang Chao. After 10 months of fighting, he actually gave a subsidy of over 300 won. More than 300 won is not more than 300 guan. On average, only 30.40 cents a month, with a subsidy of 1 penny a day. This is too stingy, right? What can 1 penny do? But when he looked at the men in Guangzhou, every time he heard his name come up to collect money, he was extremely happy, and his teeth were all exposed with a smile. 300 or 400 won, in their eyes, seemed to be a large sum of money. After 10 months of fighting, exchanged 2 or 3 kilograms of copper coins. Zhang Chao couldn't figure it out. After receiving the copper subsidy, we started distributing grain again. The grain distributed is millet, which is more abundant. Basically, everyone has about 1 stone. This stone is 10 buckets, 1 bucket is 10 liters, and it is a volumetric unit. The weight of rice, wheat, and other grains with the same volume is different, but Zhang Chao estimated that 1 stone of millet, which is 120 caddies, looks like it has been shelled. Otherwise, Zhang Chao would really not have believed that the Tang Dynasty was so stingy. After the money and grain subsidies are distributed, they are military merit rewards. Rewards for military achievements include both individual and collective military achievements. The amount of achievements made by each person has already been reviewed by a special person from the court, so now the Cheki mansion only distributes corresponding rewards based on the achievements made above. Some people have more military achievements and receive more rewards, some have fewer rewards, and some do not. Military merit rewards include honors, money and food, as well as cloth, silk, and silver. Of course, there are also officials who are awarded honors and promoted. Dad is quite eye-catching among the group of those who have received merits, and he indeed deserves a reward of the 7 ranks of Martial Cavalry Captain. Because one of the deputy officers on this expedition died in battle, and in the end, he had his father replace him as the deputy officer of this team. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Son relying on father's nobility. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Son relying on father's nobility. Watching his father come forward to appreciate, Zhang Chao grinned. Dad's bounty is quite substantial. He just received a subsidy of 500 Caiyuan Tongbao new copper coins, 2 stones of corn, and 2 pieces of silk. Now he has been awarded honors and promoted, and has been promoted from the 7th rank to the rank of military cavalry captain. He has also just been promoted to the position of deputy commander in the cavalry mansion from the 9th rank. Because my father performed well in the battle against the Central Plains and also obtained a vanguard merit. The pioneer merit is second only to the jumping merit in the personal combat achievements of the Tang army, and it is very rare. Although it is not as rare as the last World War, which only set a maximum of 10 jumping skills, the vanguard skills are also extremely rare. It is said that during the Battle of Hulao Pass, my father followed behind the Xuanjia cavalry of Qin King Li Shimin, wielding an iron spear as fast as a dragon. He led the charge into Dojian's Xia army formation and killed several enemies. If it weren't for my father being just an ordinary soldier, and if he were a Xuanjia cavalry, he would definitely have been awarded a jumping merit. However, the rewards for vanguard skills are also very rich. My father and his son were promoted to the rank of deputy in the 9th rank team, and he was also appointed as a martial cavalry captain who was considered a 7th rank. There are also many rewards, including 5 taels of silver, 10,000 Kaiyuan Tongbao, 2 pieces of silk cloth each, and 10 stones of corn. Uncle Ku, how much are these rewards worth? Zhang Chao watched as General Chariot and Cavalry chuckled as he took a tray from Soldier Chao Tsanjuan's hand and solemnly handed it over to his father. There is silver and copper in the tray, and there is also silk cloth and corn on one side of the ground. Very valuable. Black-faced man Ku Wu looked at the tray with envy on his face. When Zhang Chao asked, he carefully introduced the value of these rewards. The currency of the Tang Dynasty was a combination of money and silk, while gold and silver were not circulating currencies. In the 4th year of the Wude reign, the court minted and issued copper coins from the Tang Dynasty, known as Kaiyuan Tongbao, each weighing 1 coin, 10 when weighing 1 or 2, and 1,000 when weighing exactly 6 pounds and 4 taels. At the same time as issuing new coins, the Sui dynasty's 5 Zhu coins were abolished to replace the old 5 Zhu coins in the folk. Kaiyuan Tongbao has a good quality and is a good money. However, copper coins have not been able to buy much nowadays because of the chaos in the world and the Tang dynasty's failure to pacify the country. Years of warfare have led to a decrease in agricultural yields and a shortage of goods, resulting in extremely high prices. This year, the Tang army besieged Luoyang. Initially, the price of rice in Luoyang reached 3,000 yuan per bushel, but later on, it even reached a sky-high price of 9,000 yuan per bushel. Of course, that can only be considered an extraordinary situation, but the grain prices in Guangzhou are also very high. Originally, the Guangzhou region had fewer land and more people, and in normal years, it could not be self-sufficient. Grain had to be supplemented by imports from the Guangdong region. In today's wartime, a large number of young people from Guangzhou have gone on expeditions, resulting in less grain output and naturally high grain prices. A bushel of rice is worth a piece of silk. Silk is a type of silk product, but it cannot compare to high-end silk fabrics such as silk, because silk is relatively plain and lacks many patterns. Therefore, it is relatively ordinary, cheap, and easy to calculate its value among silk fabrics. Due to the high production and demand for silk, it began to be used as currency from the northern and southern dynasties to compensate for the shortage of copper coins. Nowadays, even silk has become the most widely traded currency among the people, with a quantity even exceeding copper coins. Nowadays, a piece of silk, folded into Kaiyuan Tongbao, is roughly worth around 500 yuan. Pai silk costs 500 won, which also means that the current price of rice in Guangzhou is 500 won per bushel of rice, and 1 stone of rice is equivalent to 5 guan copper coins. 1 dou of rice is 10 liters, which is equivalent to less than 10 caddies in the Tang dynasty. This is equivalent to 50 won per kilogram, and this price is definitely not cheap. How big is a piece of silk? A piece of silk is 4 zhang long, 1 foot 8 inches wide, and 12 liang heavy. Can you cut a few pieces of clothing? 2 stones of millet can be worth 1 stone and 2 dou of rice, Ku Wu said another conversion relationship. The reward given in the military is millet, which is also known as millet and is one of the main crops in the Guangzhou region, also known as millet. Common grains in Guangzhou include yellow rice, wheat, and sorghum. Yellow rice, also known as millet, has a distinction between softness and hardness. The hard ones are suitable for making cakes, the soft ones are suitable for making cakes, wheat flour is used for making noodles, and sorghum is suitable for brewing. The yellow millet is suitable for cooking congee, and the millet is similar to the millet, but the larger millet is suitable for making cakes. Both millet and millet are much cheaper than rice and wheat, and they are also the main food for the people in the central Shaanxi plain. By this calculation, 1 bushel of rice is now worth 500 won, while 1 bushel of corn is only worth 300 won, which is much cheaper. Dad received 12 stones of corn before and after, which could be worth 30.6 guan coins in copper coins, totaling 36,000 copper coins and weighing over 200 pounds. There is also a reward of 15,000 copper coins and 5 taels of silver bars. 1 or 2 silver coins are worth 1,016. Wu told Zhang Chao about the price comparison of silver and copper, and it was not that 1 or 2 silver coins were worth 1,000 won, but rather 1,600 won. Gold and silver are not currency, but the court will use them to reward officials and soldiers, and they can be exchanged. Gold and silver are rare and have a high fixed value. 5 taels of silver are worth 8,000 copper coins, so the reward is equivalent to 20.3 thousand coins. 2 pieces of silk cloth were each rewarded, 1 piece of silk was worth 500 yuan, and 2 pieces were worth 1,000 yuan. The price difference between cloth and silk is not much. A piece of cloth is 5 zhang long and 1 foot 8 wide, with a price ratio of 5 to 4 for silk. 1 piece of cloth is equivalent to 80% of the price of 1 piece of silk. 2 pieces of cloth are equivalent to 800 yuan. Zhang Chao is still quite accustomed to using money for unit statistics. After knowing various exchange rates, he quickly calculated the results in his mind. Corn rewards with a discount of 36,000 yuan, silver and copper rewards with a discount of 23,000 yuan, and silk cloth with a discount of 1,800 yuan. By this calculation, my father has been on the expedition for nearly a year and has achieved remarkable vanguard military achievements. He has received a total of 60,800 yuan worth of money, grain, silk, cloth, corn, and other rewards. If all 60 guan copper coins are exchanged for millet, they can be exchanged for 2,000 kilograms. In this era, Xiaomi was cheaper than rice, but in later generations, Xiaomi was actually more expensive than rice, at least 5 yuan per kilogram. 2,000 kilograms of Xiaomi, that's 10,000 soft girl coins. With this calculation, Zhang Chao suddenly felt that the reward was so small. Having been on the expedition for so long and made such great contributions, only to receive a reward of 10,000 yuan. These rewards can be exchanged for a total of 60,800 yuan, and for 20 stones of corn. Really? Wu was greatly shocked. That's right, it's easy to calculate, Zhang Chao said naturally. It's just a simple calculation. But Wu was clearly shocked, and he didn't see Zhang Chao calculating. He was just calculating in his mind, and he managed to figure it out in a moment. It was really impressive. I didn't expect that you would still be able to keep accounts. I think it's even more impressive than the accountants in ordinary government and wealthy households. A few soldiers from Zhangjiagu on the side were amazed by Zhang Chao's computational ability and marveled at his father's reward. 2,000 kilograms of corn may seem insignificant to Zhang Chao, but in the eyes of those Guangzhou men, it is a huge wealth. Especially in this era of constant war and famine, 20 stones of grain are enough to be consumed for 3 years. According to the regulations of the Tang Dynasty army, a guard of the Forbidden Army was given 12 stones of corn for a year, and 30.6 stones of corn for war horses. This standard is applicable to the Yuan Song Forbidden Army, and it is somewhat surplus. But ordinary people in Guangzhou cannot eat dry rice every meal, nor do they eat 3 meals a day. Therefore, if you save a little, 20 stones of grain can definitely be consumed for 3 years. If you save a little more, you may even be able to eat it for the whole family for 2 more years. These days, the most valuable items are not gold and silver, nor copper coins and silk, but food. The old iron gun has gained more than 100 mu of land. Yeah, my older brother is really lucky when he's old. Just as he picked up a son, he got promoted and became rich again. San Lang, you're really a lucky star. Zhang's father was awarded the rank of military cavalry captain, and he also received 60 acres of land for his honor. And now that my father has been promoted to the rank of 9th rank team mate in the Cheki mansion, he can obtain another 80 acres of work land. These 80 acres of farmland are his land of rewards. The Tang Dynasty did not offer salaries to officials other than those in the capital, but directly uprooted farmland. Officials at all levels are divided into official fields based on their grades, and the rental income from the fields is their salary. The team leaders and deputy leaders from the 9th grade and the 9th grade are both 80 acres of farmland. Even various levels of government offices have their own public office fields, and the income from these fields is used as office expenses. Although Zhijian is not Yongye Tian and must be taken back or resold once resigned, at least the income from these 80 acres of land during employment is available. Dad used to have 30 acres of land in Zhangjiagu, but now he has an additional 140 acres, which is 170 acres. Excluding these 80 acres of farmland, both Xuantian and Yongye fields add up to nearly 100 acres. Mr. Zhang has suddenly become a landlord. Isn't it that I immediately became a landlord's child and a second-generation official? In the morning, Zhang Chao was still worried as he looked at the broken cellar and empty grain bag. Unexpectedly, by noon, he had already become a member of the exploiting class. During the new book period, we urgently need everyone's recommendation ticket support. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Old Xiang Hao and Braised Tail Banquet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Old Xiang Hao and Braised Tail Banquet. The reward was over, and the old man walked towards Zhang Chao and the others, with an indescribable joy on his face. Congratulations, brother. From now on, he will be the teammate of our former left team. There are 5 teams in a team, and although Dad is only promoted to deputy, he is also the second in command in this 50-member government army team. The leaders of each group came to pay their respects to the new boss. Wu also followed behind several gang leaders, who turned out to be a military commander in Dad's gang. Dad used to have a group of 10 people, with 5 of them divided into 2 armies. Dad was the leader of the group and also the left 5th commander, while Wu was the right 5th commander. Now my father has been promoted to team vice president, and Kawushuan has taken over the position of team leader, concurrently serving as left Wu Chang. The position of right Wu Chang has been taken over by the yellow-faced sword player Kushan from the same village. Just a teammate, Dad chuckled, but it was clear that he was still very happy in his heart. The deputy of the team was promoted and awarded honors today. This is a blessing on the cake. At noon, the brothers will have your barbecue banquet. How about drinking at Mrs. Kuchi's shop right at the door? Chui Hao, the team leader, smiled beside his father. This team leader is the old team leader of Dad's team, but he is not old, only in his early 30s. He is from the town of Bailu Township. The Burn Tail Banquet was originally a banquet for the promotion of court officials, inviting the emperor to thank him for his kindness. Somehow, it quickly became popular among the people. Nowadays, not only do ministers and officials who have been promoted hold banquets, but even ordinary small officials and officials who have been promoted also hold banquets, also known as banquets. The meaning of burning tails varies in folk legends. It is said that there is a sudden change in human status, just like a fierce tiger transforming into a human. The tail is still large, so it needs to be burned. Another theory is that when the new sheep first enter the flock, they may not be peaceful due to being offended by the flock. Only by burning the tail of the new sheep can it settle down and enter the bureaucratic class from the common people, just like the new sheep entering and exiting the flock. It is difficult to adapt to the new environment for a while, so it is necessary to burn the tail. There is also a saying that when a carp leaps over the dragon gate, it must have a heavenly fire to pour its tail away in order to become a dragon. Regardless of which statement is used, burning the tail implies promotion and renewal, hence the name of this banquet is Burning the Tail Banquet. Those courtiers who were promoted to the emperor for a thank you banquet at the end of the meal were extremely sumptuous, even more so than the later Manchu and Han banquets. However, for ordinary officials to be promoted, setting up this banquet is just an opportunity to liven up and communicate the relationship between new colleagues. Dad was promoted to the rank of deputy, and his actual position was in the 9th grade, which can be considered as a leap from a commoner to a military officer. This practical position is not comparable to a distinguished official or a distinguished official, it is a genuine official. Dad didn't want to ruin everyone's fun on such a lively day, so he agreed without hesitation. I'll inform Madam Seven to prepare some drinks and dishes, and make sure to have a good drink this afternoon. Ku-Wu smiled and walked outside the camp. On the school field, it was bustling with excitement, and the soldiers who went on the expedition received more or less rewards, all with happy smiles on their faces. The soldiers on duty were also watching the excitement on the side, congratulating the rewarded villagers and inviting them to treat them to drinks. At this moment, no one is stingy, everyone is smiling and nodding. So the people who knew each other agreed to go drinking. The countryside is really lively today. Chang'an, who had just been promoted to the rank of sergeant, chuckled and his yellow face turned red. He also received a lot of money in food today, with several hundred kilograms of corn and a reward of money and silk. Now he has been promoted to the position of gang leader, of course, he is happy. Dad gave a lot of rewards, including several tens of pounds of silver and copper, not to mention over 1,000 pounds of corn, and many pieces of cloth. Borrow a car and take the things to Lady Ku-Chi's shop first. Chang'an smiled while his father remained silent. There was a large cart in the military camp, with mules attached. Chang'an called out to his fellow villagers and helped his father transport and reward money, silk, and corn together. Who is Mrs. Ku-Chi? Zhang Chao has heard everyone say several times about Lady Ku-Chi, and seeing them bringing her father's money and food to her shop, this relationship is very close. Chang'an turned his head to look at his father who was talking to Lu Duitu, and then leaned into Zhang Chao's ear and smiled. Mrs. Ku-Chi is also a woman from our Zhangjiagu, but she married to Zhao Zhuang next door in her early years. Her man used to be a soldier of the government, and he died when he went to fight against Lu Wuzhou in Hedong 2 years ago. Mrs. Qi became widowed and took 2 daughters with him. Iron Gun Brother often helped them out when he saw that their mother was pitiful. Iron Gun Brother has a kind heart, and Mrs. Qi opened a small restaurant outside our military camp. That capital was also from Iron Gun Brother. Zhang Chao immediately understood the hint of meaning in Chang'an's tone when he spoke. I guess Dad is not just kind-hearted and helpful, but may also have some other intentions. Uncle Sean, are Dad and 7th Lady interesting? Oh, you're actually an elf. It's like arithmetic just now, and some places don't seem like people who have been in the mountains for a long time. Let me tell you, don't tell Dad. Actually, everyone can tell that Dad is interested in Mrs. Ku-Chi. Mrs. Ku-Chi's intentions towards Brother Iron Gun are also clear, and I guess they must have already gone through that privately. As he spoke, he gave Zhang Chao a look that even a man could understand. Zhang Chao nodded repeatedly. Lang has feelings, but I have intentions. One is a young widow, and the other is a middle-aged widower. It is normal for a firewood to catch fire between the two. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, society was heavily influenced by the Hu style, and the atmosphere was relatively open. It was normal for widows to remarry, and even the court openly encouraged widows to remarry and even young people to marry early in order to encourage post-war production and increase population. However, it is not so easy for 2 people to get along well and live together. After all, we also need to consider our children, husband's family, parents' family, and so on. Pulling a cart full of corn out of the camp gate, walking more than 10 steps to the right, there was a storefront. 7th sister, this is Iron Gun Brothers' grain. Let me put it in your place for now, Chang'an shouted loudly. Okay, just cut it at the back, a sharp woman replied, her voice dropping as a woman in her 30s appeared. The woman is wearing a tight and narrow skirt. A jacket with a narrow and short body, with a jacket longer than the jacket and shorter than the robe. Ru is very short, while the skirt is very long. The woman's skirt is tied very high, directly under her armpit, but actually on her chest. With a high waist, a tight chest, close to the hips, and a wide swing, wearing an ordinary dress on her body fully reveals her symmetrical and slender curves, as well as a hint of graceful demeanor. The woman has clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes, and an oval face. Just by looking at her face, Zhang Chao thinks that this woman is very kind. Seventh sister, come on, let me introduce you to you. This is the newly adopted son of Iron Gun brother, named Zhang Chao. The woman was surprised to hear that the tall and handsome young man with short hair in front of her was actually the newly adopted son of Zhang Qiang. Hello Aunt Qi, my name is Zhang Chao. I used to be a monk, but now I have returned to secular life after going down the mountain. My father likes to take me as his son. Xiang was clearly caught off guard and stood there for a while before regaining her senses. Oh, this way, hurry inside, it's cold outside, she said. It's said to be a treat, but in fact, there isn't a decent restaurant on the streets of this village. Mrs. Ku's restaurant is actually a small noodle shop, specializing in noodle dishes. Guests can make whatever they want, with soup cakes as the main dish. They also steam some steamed cakes, and if needed, they can also fry some pancakes for sale. However, this shop is really simple. It has a storefront of about 30.40 square meters, one to the bottom, and there are about 10 tables inside, all of which are very ordinary wooden tables with wooden stools, very simple. There were only 7 women inside and outside the store, with no other helpers. In no time, Dad followed the leader of the Lu team over. Today, our team's brothers came to take care of themselves and eat whatever they want. They all went to my account. Dad was quite generous. A team of 50 people sat at a table with the team leader, several team leaders, and the soldiers from the same village, while the rest of them were at ease. Fortunately, everyone is happy to have free food and is not picky. Let's just eat soup cakes, it's simple and convenient. Mrs. Ku would help her father save money by choosing the simplest, most convenient, and affordable soup cake, which is noodles. The men in the team are not picky either, it's satisfying to have soup cakes to eat. Ku Wu and Ku Shan, one went to the only deli restaurant on the street to buy cooked meat, and the other went to get a drink. The shop became busy, and many other soldiers also came to eat. This one is asking for a bowl of soup pancakes, and the other one is asking for a few pancakes, isn't it lively? Xiaoyan, come over and help me quickly. Xiang was flustered and unable to keep up. Here we go. A tall little girl, about 11 or 12 years old, came out from behind with an 8 or 9-year-old girl. The girl had sleeves rolled up and water in her hands, indicating that she was washing dishes from behind just now. Zhang Chao estimated that these 2 girls are the daughters of Xiang, and they do indeed look very similar to Xiang. The little girl is not afraid of the hustle and bustle in the store. The big girl helped roll out the noodles, while the little girl helped set the fire, and they cooperated very well. Ladies from all walks of life are not easily exposed, but for ordinary people, these are not so particular. San Lang helped to greet the villagers. Dad saw how good the business was, so he rolled up his sleeves and came over to help knead the dough. Several fellow villagers in Zhangjiagu also helped to greet guests and served bowls and noodles. Oh, Zhang Chao nodded with a smile and joined the bustling business of this small noodle shop. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. A group of foodies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. A group of foodies. There are not many restaurants in Bailu Township, and Kukiniangzi's noodle shop usually relies on the business of the Cavalry Mansion soldiers. The Cheki Mansion has always maintained a situation of over 100 people in the camp, and the soldiers in the camp also bring their own food to train and be on duty. They take turns cooking on their own. But a group of big men cooking is definitely not very good. Therefore, occasionally everyone would go to a small restaurant outside to have a meal. Mrs. Kuchi's husband used to be a soldier in the Cheki Mansion, and later his father helped take care of the business. Therefore, this small restaurant was maintained, allowing Mrs. Kuchi's family of 3 to live here. But normal business is just like that, lukewarm and barely maintained. But today is different. Many soldiers who went to war returned to receive rewards and received many rewards. Everyone was happy, but it was rare for them to come to the store and be generous. Usually, people may come to buy a pancake, but today they have to order at least 2 bowls of it. Even some captains and team leaders are treating guests here. The 10 tables in the store were quickly full, and Zhang Chao followed Ku Wu and the others to set up 4 tables under the pergola outside the store. Millet congee, steamed cakes, pancakes, bowls of soup cakes, the business of the store is surprisingly good today. In fact, in Zhang Chao's opinion, the food in Kukiniangzi's shop is very simple, with almost no seasoning. It's just like what my dad made in the morning, except for adding some lamb oil and scallions, there's nothing else. There are no tempting toppings, no marinade, let alone poached eggs, vegetables, mushrooms, and so on. It's really a bit too simplistic. But everyone was eating with relish, unable to sit down at the table, so they squatted outside the shop in the snow, holding a sea bowl and eating with a delicious taste. These men are really not picky about eating. These soldiers are not only not picky, but each one has a good appetite. The soldiers in Dad's team were very impolite because they had a free lunch that Dad treated them to. At least 3 pounds of ocean bowls, each of these people has to eat at least 3 large bowls. A few foodies even ate 5 big bowls in a row, and there was one guy who was like a rice bowl. He ate 7 bowls alone without any support. This makes Zhang Chao very worried about this guy, whether he will hold on or not. Although there is not much noodles and soup, this belly is really big. However, for these men, there is a rare opportunity to let go of their stomachs and eat fiercely, which is an extremely happy thing and naturally won't be polite. Usually I drink porridge at home and eat wild vegetables. Now I have soup cakes made of white flour. In winter, the hot soup cakes can't be more comfortable. These people are really good. If they say treat, they don't want to die. Mr. Zhang doesn't care about these things, but Mrs. Kuchi feels a little heartbroken. It's rare to be so happy today, just make everyone happy. A bowl doesn't cost 51. Nowadays, the price of grain in Guangzhou remains high, so even a simple noodle soup is very expensive. After all, a bucket of rice costs 500 won. Mrs. Ku felt sorry for her father, but when he spoke up, she didn't say anything more. 51 per bowl of plain water noodles is really expensive. However, Zhang Chao also knew that as the Tang Dynasty gradually pacified the world, the order of the world gradually resumed, production also began to recover, and various prices would also fall. Under normal circumstances, a price of over 10 won for dummy is considered normal. According to historical records, by the 4th year of the Chang'an reign, the country had been experiencing consecutive years of abundant harvests. At that time, grain prices had fallen comprehensively, and the price of rice was as low as 2 won. Grain prices had plummeted more than 200 times compared to now. After being busy for half an hour, I finally saw off most of the customers who ate noodles. Are you a monk? Zhang Chao was wiping the table while Lan Er, the youngest daughter of the 7th lady, stared at the short hair under his hat. It used to be, but not now. Are you Uncle Zhang's son now? The little girl asked again. Yes, my name is Zhang Chao, you can call me brother. The young girl Liener stood a little further away, secretly observing Zhang Chao, but did not come forward. Both sisters seemed curious and shy about Zhang Chao. San Lang, let's eat together. Kush Shan called out to Zhang Chao on the side. Most of the soldiers who had eaten and left, and now they finally had time to eat. The 2 tables inside have already been filled with cooked food and brought rice wine. Just a few plates of cooked meat, with some fried beans, boiled bamboo shoots, and so on added, but the people at both tables exclaimed that Dad had spent a lot today. There is wine and meat, and when paired with soup cakes, everyone thinks it's very rich. Dad used to have 2 sons, so now he takes Zhang Chao as his son and calls him Sanlang. Sanlang, you have a toast to everyone. Zhang Chao stood up with a smile, carrying a full glass of wine, and saluted everyone. Dear uncles, I am a junior, so let's take action first as a gesture of respect. Zhang Chao drank all the wine in his glass in one gulp, and as the wine entered his throat, he felt a surge of energy with a hint of sourness. This wine has a really strange taste and a very poor taste. But everyone drank happily. This wine was made in a rural shop. Although it is not a famous wine like Xinfeng wine, it is not cheap. It can be considered to be of a higher grade, and the price is much more expensive than grain. A group of soldiers from the government don't have many opportunities to drink. Although alcohol is not tasty, it cannot intoxicate Zhang Chao. After getting used to drinking alcohol from later generations, this type of alcohol is similar to beer. Zhang Chao frequently raised his glass and toasted, which made everyone feel that this young man was very polite. Although he had just returned to secular life from the mountain, his manners were still very good. After drinking and eating, the leader of the Lu team and the other leaders each left, leaving only Ku Wu and other local soldiers. Dad is very happy today, his face is red with a purple light on the scar that has cut through his left eye. I plan to invite the village elders, village officials, as well as the generals and captains of the Cheki mansion, as well as various brigade commanders and team leaders, to my home for a banquet tomorrow. Tomorrow, as everyone witnesses, I officially take San Lang as my son. Dad doesn't have a son, so taking in a son is like being a biological son. This is a very important thing, because there are no clan relatives here, so fellow villagers are witnesses. After the banquet, Li Zhang was asked to help Sanlang leave his registered residence. Registered residence status is very important. If there is no registered residence status, it is a black family. If the government inquires, they will be arrested. With a household registration, one can divide the land and also bear the burden of rent, labor, and labor for the country, especially for men aged 21 and above who have already become adults. The court conducts household registration checks every 3 years, and the village leaders in each village are responsible for managing local leak detection. The court is very strict in dealing with those who conceal their household registration, especially for men who have grown up. If they deliberately conceal and do not report, even these officials will be punished with whipping, with a maximum of 1 year of apprenticeship. When we finish the registered residence, we will entrust someone to tell Sanlang about the marriage, said the old man with a rosy face. The reward this time is quite generous, which happens to be a good match for Sanlang. The reward that my father received can be equivalent to over 2,000 kilograms of corn. At this time of extremely high grain prices, this reward is indeed very generous. But this afternoon we had a treat, and my dad also had some bleeding. Everyone ate for thousands of dollars. Fortunately, the noodle shop belongs to Chang'an, and if we only consider the cost, it has saved a lot. However, Zhang Chao is not in a hurry to talk about marriage. Now that I have this money and grain in my hand, I should first build 2 new cellars and have one hole for my father to live in. In the future, I will marry Chang'an and let them live together. There are 2 remaining rooms, one for oneself and the other for the 2 girls, Lian Yang and Lan Yang. Zhang Chao even had a preliminary plan in his heart to renovate this small noodle shop. This is close to the military camp, and the location is actually quite good. If we can innovate and come up with some tricks, then we should still be able to make money. Zhang Chao is not the kind of person who only focuses on producing land. While land is fundamental, opening a store is better for making money. Just arrived at the Tang Dynasty, Zhang Chao didn't have any lofty ambitions at the moment. He was only thinking about how to make his life more comfortable and his father more comfortable. Build a new cellar, plate a heated Kong, build a new style stove, and open a noodle shop. With a hint of alcohol in his mouth, Zhang Chao described his future plans to his father and seventh wife, and the more he spoke, the more excited he became. He spoke a lot in one breath. Until the end, my eyelids couldn't lift anymore and I fell asleep. Before going to bed, Zhang Chao was surprised that although the rice wine tasted sour and light, it had a strong aftertaste. Dad looked at Zhang Chao sleeping on the table and was a bit surprised. I don't see Sanlang at all as you said. He has been living with the old monk in the deep mountains for many years, without eating anything. Instead, he looks like a knowledgeable business assistant who travels far and wide. Ku Wu looked at Zhang Chao, who was sleeping soundly, and said to his father. This child is quite good. Zhang Taigun pondered for a long time before finally uttering this sentence. The data has been locked for 2 days, what a pitfall. Everyone, please help cast more recommended votes and hope to catch up. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Settling in the Tang Dynasty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Settling in the Tang Dynasty. After dinner, Mrs. Ku and her 3 daughters closed the noodle shop and helped Zhang Jiago and his group borrow several large cars to bring money and food back to the village. The snow on the road had not yet completely melted, the sky was gloomy and the north wind was howling, but everyone was very happy and laughed happily all the way. This year will be a good year, said the black-faced man Ku Wu, looking at the car full of money and provisions. Not only can we have a good new year, but we can also rest for more than half a year next year. Ku Shan, with a yellow face, blushed. He was happy just now and drank a few more glasses of turbid wine. However, despite his tall stature, his alcohol tolerance was average, and a few glasses of wine were already a bit overwhelming. The village is only 5 miles away from Zhangjia village, very close. The cart has no mules or horses, and can only be pulled and pushed by human labor, but it can also walk smoothly. A group of soldiers from Zhangjiagu have been on a successful expedition for nearly a year. According to regulations, if they are not urgently called up in the event of war, they will be exempt from boarding guards and training at the chariot and cavalry mansion for the next 10 months. They can rest for 10 months with peace of mind. Next year will be the year of spot check again, and when Sanlang gets into registered residence, he should also participate. Ku Wu helped push the cart, looking at the tall Zhang Chao. Zhang Chao frowned. I don't want to be a government soldier. What's wrong with being a prefectural soldier? Being a prefectural soldier can exempt you from taxes and give priority to dividing the land. When you go to the battlefield and make contributions, you can also receive money in food rewards, and earn merits. Just like your father, you need to be a noble official and receive land rewards. If you're lucky, you can still be promoted to an official. When Zhang Chao heard that he doesn't want to be a prefectural soldier, the men in Zhangjiagu exploded. At that time, people were very willing to become soldiers, and being a soldier was not only because it was exempt from taxation. But it is because the soldiers of the government are still a rare opportunity for many ordinary people to break away from the common people and enter the bureaucratic class. With skills, there is a great chance to earn money, food, and land. Even with better luck, one can still earn honors and land. Even with better luck, one can even be promoted to military officer. From then on, the carp leaped over the dragon gate and became a member of the government. It is too difficult for ordinary people in this era to cross this level. Although the imperial examination system had already existed since the Sui dynasty, it was not perfect and was only unattainable. Ordinary people could not eat enough, let alone study. Even after reading a book, if no one in the court recommends recommendation, it is still difficult to pass the imperial examination and enter politics. Being a soldier, going to the battlefield, and earning merits is the opportunity for the common people. Zhang Chao smiled, he doesn't have that much ambition and doesn't want to become an official. In this era, the mortality rate of soldiers fighting is still very high. It's nothing if I don't want to be. Dad walked beside Zhang Chao with no expression on his face. Choosing the soldiers is not something that can be done if you want to go. There are only 2 of us in our family. I am already a soldier, and according to the rules, you cannot choose. The soldiers of the Tang Dynasty were selected every 3 years, mainly selecting young children from self-farmers and landlords. The first choice is to have more wealth, followed by strong strength, and then choose Ding Duo. That is to say, if you want to become a soldier, the selection criteria for the government are first that the family is relatively wealthy, followed by young and strong young men. If you are both wealthy and young and strong, priority should be given to selecting from families with more people. Only children are generally not selected. Once selected, it means having a military name and serving for life, from the age of 21 to the age of 60. Under this system of selecting government soldiers, most people who want to become government soldiers cannot do so. Zhang Chao's situation clearly does not comply with the third point. Although the Zhang family is considered wealthy and can afford to provide their own equipment, and Zhang Chao is also young, the Zhang family only has 2 children in total, and his father is already a soldier. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Zhang Chao cannot be selected. However, young people like Zhang Chao who voluntarily refuse to become government soldiers are considered very few in Guangzhou, just like scholars in the Song and Ming dynasties who refuse to participate in the imperial examinations, which makes Ku Wu and others feel that Zhang Chao's ideas are strange. Wulong, Dashan, when we get home, please tell your father that our house will set up a banquet tomorrow and let them come over to eat. Father proactively changed the topic to Ku Wu and Kushan. Okay. 5 Li Road, not far away, everyone quickly pushed and pulled the big cart to the village gate. Every village in the Tang dynasty had village gates, and many villages even had village walls. This is also a continuation from the southern and northern dynasties, with some self-protection abilities similar to those of Wu Bao. At the entrance of the village, an old man stood at the door, everyone called him Zhen Shu. He was disabled and had a lame leg. It is said that during the Sui dynasty, he was also a prefectural soldier. Later, he fought for years and couldn't bear the hardships, so he self-harmed to escape military service. Now the village arranges for him to guard the village gate, work at night, and give him some money and food, which can also be considered as taking care of him as a lonely old man. The iron gun has returned, and all the money and food have been loaded into 3 large carts. The rewards are very abundant. Uncle Zhen stood at the door with a cane, watching everyone pull back the 3 large carts of money and food, and happily approached to say hello. Uncle Zhen, Iron Gun brother, is now the deputy of the team and has also been awarded the rank of military cavalry captain. He is now a Shangwan, Kushan said with a smile. Ah, congratulations on Iron Gun. Dad took a small bag of grain and a piece of cloth from the car and handed it to Uncle Zhen. This is a bucket of corn and 3 feet of cloth. Uncle Zhen will take them home. This cannot be used. Why are you so polite to me? Father put the things in Uncle Zhen's arms. Tomorrow I will set up a banquet and officially take San Lang as my son. Uncle Zhen will come over and have a drink. Uncle Zhen accepted it with great gratitude. Ku Qingyang said to Zhang Chao on the side, your father is kind-hearted. Orphans and widows in the village are very well taken care of, often delivering food and firewood. Zhang Chao smiled slightly and said in a low voice to her, it's precisely because my father has a kind heart that Qingyang likes him. What are you talking about? Qingyang's face flushed as she turned her head and walked away. Entering the village, everyone went back to their own homes. Qingyang also avoided suspicion and went back to her own mother's house first. 12 stones of corn, some were left at the 7 women noodle shop, and Uncle Zhen was given a bucket. The remaining 10 stones were transported back home. Dad and Zhang Chao moved all this 1,000 kilograms of corn into the house. The cave was very small, and in the end, all the grain was piled up by the bed, creating a small grain pile. Looking at this pile of corn bags, Dad was very pleased. In times of prosperity, antiques, and chaos, gold. In turbulent times, food is even more precious than gold. My father originally owned 30 acres of land, but because he often went on expeditions, he did not cultivate it himself. Instead, he cultivated it for other people in the village, and he collected some rent. The rent is not high, it is collected at a rate of 20%. It is agreed to collect 2 bushels of millet per acre per year, which is based on an annual yield of 1 stone per acre. This number is relatively fair, with 20% of the rent being lower, indicating that my father is kind-hearted. Dad's 30 acres of land can earn 6 stones of millet per year from rent. Because my father is a government soldier and is exempt from taxes, these 6 stone millets do not need to be submitted to the court anymore, they all belong to me. Originally, my father was alone, and these grains were sufficient. However, my father often helps the lonely and widows, and when the year is not good, he will even lower his rent, so my father's life has always been poor. Dad, our family is too small. Now we have food and money at home. I think we should take advantage of the winter leisure and invite someone to tie up 2 more cellars, level the entire larger courtyard, and dig a well in the courtyard. Life will be convenient in the future. The small cave filled with over 1,000 kilograms of grain and was filled with food all at once. It's all right, I'll listen to you. Dad advised me like a stream. After returning from the military mansion, most of my father's equipment was left in the cavalry mansion. Helmets, armor, and other items were mostly left in the treasury, with only the bow and crossbar, as well as his iron spear, brought home. This is for daily training at home. In a few days, I will invite a matchmaker over. If you want to find any kind of girl, just tell the matchmaker. You are also 21 years old, and there are several children of this age in the village. Now, I will invite someone to talk about matchmaking, and we can get married when the new cellar is secured. Father really didn't say anything to Zhang Chao. Dad, I'm not in a hurry, it's you. I see that you and Chang'an are also interested in each other, and there's no need to delay. It's better to hire someone as a matchmaker to marry someone back home as soon as possible. Dad was a bit tempted, but he didn't want to talk to Zhang Chao about it. Let's talk about this matter later. What else are you talking about, brother? I think what Sanlang said makes a lot of sense. You and Chang'an have feelings and intentions, and mutual willingness is enough. If you don't mind, I'll be the matchmaker. A cheerful voice sounded outside. Li Xiang is coming, Dad stood up. Li was an old man with half-white beard and hair, wearing a round-necked robe and a soft-footed bun on his head. He had a kind eyebrow and a kind expression. This is Dashan's father, the Li Xiang of our Zhang family, the father introduced to Zhang Chao. In the Tang Dynasty, there were 5 households and 1 protection, and 100 households and 1 mile. Li Xiang is the chief of 100 households, equivalent to a village committee director in later generations. But in the Tang Dynasty, below the county level were townships, managing 500 households within 5 miles. However, there was no township head at the township level, and instead, the 5 township heads took turns in managing the affairs of each township. Therefore, this Li Xiang is actually equivalent to a village leader in later generations. Kushan's father, Kurenjeng, is one of the 5 village leaders in Bailu Township, Ningmin County. This month, it happened to be Kurenjeng's turn to take charge of the affairs of Bailu Township. These days, he has been serving as a servant in the Ningmin County government office. 5 Li Xiang takes turns presiding over township affairs, with each person taking turns for a month. When it's their turn, they go to the county government to listen to the officials and assist various departments in handling various matters related to Bailu Township, such as taxation and grain collection, litigation, and catching thieves. Among these, there is also an important task, which is to be responsible for collecting all the hands and materials. Hands-on is the basic file fabricated by registered residents. The main responsibilities of Li Zhang are to compare household registration, teach agricultural and mulberry cultivation, inspect non-violations, and urge the expulsion of taxes. In the early Tang Dynasty, the registered residence management was very strict. The village leaders of Lijiang were very strict about the household registration management in their jurisdiction. The registered residence was created every 3 years, while the actual files of Lijiang Xiangzheng were updated in real time. Which family gave birth to a child, which elderly family passed away, where outsiders moved in, and even which family bought slaves, all of these will be immediately registered and reported. If their work is not done well and there are omissions, and they are discovered by the higher authorities, from the relevant officials in the county government to the village chief and the parties involved, they will all be punished, and in severe cases, they will be punished for 1 to 3 years. Imprisonment is also known as forced labor. Kuren has heard that Zhang's father brought a monk to the village to return to secular life on the way, and he also wants to take him as his son's successor. Therefore, he returned to the village early today, mainly to inspect and register. Li Zhang has arrived, and soon Murakami has also arrived. The village chief in Zhangjiagu also has the surname Ku and his name is Kuan. He is the father of the black-faced man Ku Wu. As the village chief of Zhangjiagu, Kuan is a subordinate of Li Jingkuren, mainly responsible for assisting Li Jingkuren, managing village security in Zhangjiagu, mediating disputes, and assisting in tax collection. After Li Jingkuren and village Chang'an arrived, they asked about Zhang Chao's background as usual. Zhang Chao repeated the words he had previously followed the old monk in the mountains to practice. He had originally thought that Kuren and his team would conduct a lot of investigations, but after only asking a few questions, it was considered complete. Well, when your hand actually reports to the county government, your registered residence will come down in a few days. The smooth process surprised Zhang Chao a bit. Alright, Sanlang's hands have also been registered. Now let's talk about the good things between Iron Gun Brother and Qin Yang. Kuren stroked his white beard and smiled. Dad's face turned slightly red and he felt a bit embarrassed, which made Zhang Chao feel happy. Starting from next week, there will be 2 shifts per week. Please find recommended tickets. End of this chapter.